Taiwan's COVID wave heads south with concerns over children's safety and a lack of hospital beds. Taiwan is the only Chinese-speaking country that can publicly mark the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. TaiwanPlus was there. Dozens of agreements, but no security deal. We find out what China's gained from its high-level diplomatic offensive in the South Pacific. Old tradition, new idea. How Dajia Mazu finds creative ways to attract all generations. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. We begin with the latest on the COVID situation here. Taiwan reported more than 53,000 new cases on Monday, a noticeable dip following a three-day holiday weekend. Now the government is asking parents to look for warning signs in children who may be infected. As of Monday, 16 children with COVID have died in Taiwan, all of them since April. John Van Trieste has more.
Taiwan is taking action to catch COVID in children early. Faced with a growing number of deaths and a lower vaccination rate than among adults, it's giving out free test kits to children as young as 6. It's also trying to handle the growing number of young COVID patients with encephalitis, or swelling of the brain. It's a complication behind a string of deaths in children here. Experts say parents should be looking out for unusual behavior.
脑炎的小朋友在可能就医前或者就医当中，会有一些这种所谓语无伦次，或者是有一些幻觉导致说讲出一些可能听起来比较耸动的言语。事实上，在我们目前的脑炎个案当中，并不少见啊。
The government is urging hospitals in the south of Taiwan to raise their capacity to take in patients. The south has seen a growing number of cases, leaving less than 30% of beds available.
那这个南区应该要增加200多床，那希望能够这样子的增加的床数在调配上面能够更有余裕。
Taiwan's health minister says he expects the ongoing wave to start easing at the end of the week. This will give hospitals room to breathe after what's been Taiwan's worst outbreak of COVID since the pandemic began. Asnaya Zhou and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
A delegation from Slovakia has met with Taiwan's premier in Taipei to forge more economic, trade and technology cooperation. Over the next 4 days, the delegation will meet with President Tsai Ing-wen and travel to the southern city of Kaohsiung. The group is led by Milan Lorenček, the deputy speaker of the Slovak National Council. It is Slovakia's second visit to Taiwan in 6 months. China's foreign minister wrapped up a tour of the South Pacific without securing a regional pact on security and trade. During his 10-day visit, Wang Yi made a stop in 8 island nations. He signed dozens of bilateral deals on issues including infrastructure and police equipment. It's the first visit to the region by a high-level Chinese official in more than 2 years. The centerpiece of the trip was a discussion of a proposed security deal between Wang Yi and the foreign ministers of 10 Pacific Island nations, which failed to materialize. Beijing's renewed interest in the island nations has drawn attention from traditional Pacific players such as the United States, Australia and New Zealand. For more on the significance of the trip for China and the region, our reporter Louise Watt spoke to Pacific Islands expert Dr. Tess Newton-Kane.
I think it was a very important trip for China, for the foreign minister. It's his first one to visit all of these countries. There are, he got round, he put in a lot of miles, in the airplane and diplomatically. It was particularly significant that he went to both Solomon Islands and Kiribati, who are both fairly new to the stable of Pacific Island countries that recognize the PRC. And as we know, in each of the countries that he went to, there were a number of signings of MOUs or letters of exchange or discussion agreements about projects. Now, it's not completely clear how many of those are new initiatives, and some of them are more likely to be formalizations of existing initiatives. But in terms of bilateral agreements, There's no doubt that that will be very much the focus of how this is portrayed to a domestic audience as having been a diplomatic success. Less successful was the attempt to secure a multilateral agreement. So what we've seen since then is that the Chinese side has put forward a position paper, which contains a lot of what was in that original communique, but with some significant deletions, and has said that that the group has agreed to work on consensus. So it's not a dead conversation. It's quite clear that China sees this as one that's worth pursuing.
And Taiwan has diplomatic relations with some of the Pacific Island nations that the Chinese foreign minister, of course, didn't visit. Now, how much of an issue was Taiwan during his trip there?
My sense would be that it's very unlikely that Taiwan was discussed. However, when it comes to what's happening in the Pacific Islands region as a whole, the fact that Taiwan has diplomatic relationships with 4 members of the Pacific Islands Forum, so that's Nauru, Palau, the Marshall Islands, and Tuvalu, is really significant because, and this is why China is unable or wasn't able to ask the Forum Secretariat to convene a meeting of the Forum membership, because it's not possible for that to happen. The Forum Secretariat can't convene a meeting of the Forum membership and then say, oh, but you guys can't come because China just wants to meet with the ones that have diplomatic relationships with them.
Human rights groups are condemning the arrest of at least 6 people in Hong Kong for marking the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. Events commemorating the 33rd anniversary of the June 4th crackdown were held around the world over the weekend. For the first time in Hong Kong, there were no public activities marking the date. Even churches cancelled memorial services in fear of violating the sweeping national security law imposed by Beijing 2 years ago. Police prevented people from entering Victoria Park, the traditional venue for Tiananmen memorials. They warned residents that it could be illegal to go to the park, to hold events, or to go online, to even suggest others do so. In other parts of the world, NGOs and diaspora groups organised candlelit vigils and other events to mark June 4th. At least 8 cities, including London, Seoul, Tokyo, Taipei, Sydney and San Francisco, held memorials. Crowds gathered in Taipei on Saturday night to mark the anniversary. Activists erected a replica of the iconic Pillar of Shame monument, which was taken down in Hong Kong last December. Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick was there.
Torn down in its hometown, a Hong Kong icon is reborn in Taiwan. A replica of the Pillar of Shame, commemorating the victims of the Tiananmen Square massacre, now stands in the heart of Taipei. Unveiled on the 33rd anniversary of the deadly crackdown, when soldiers opened fire on pro-democracy protesters in Beijing on June 4, 1989, killing thousands. The project was launched by the New School for Democracy.
这个决定说实在不是一个深思熟虑的决定，我们是在一股冲动之下所做的决定，因为香港有我们很多很好的朋友。 因为港区国安法的实施他们现在坐在国安的法庭的大牢里。
Veteran activists like Zhang say they feel an affinity for Hong Kong, since Taiwan also endured a long, harsh period of martial law, known as the White Terror. Hong Kong, once under British rule, was handed back to China 25 years ago, with the promise that Hong Kong's freedoms would remain unchanged for at least 50 years.
For decades, the Pillar of Shame stood as a monument in Hong Kong, both to the victims of June 4th and to the city's freedoms, its unique role as the one place on Chinese soil where people could remember their sacrifice and the dream of democracy that they died for.
But that came to an end in December last year. Fears of running afoul of a national security law imposed by Beijing prompted the University of Hong Kong, where the pillar stood, to dismember and remove it. Its ultimate fate? Still uncertain. As Hong Kong authorities have used the law to crush dissent, Taiwan is now the only place in the Chinese-speaking world where the June 4th massacre can be publicly acknowledged. Some here feel a sense of duty to pick up the torch, but Taiwanese activist Li Mingzi, recently freed after 5 years in a Chinese prison, sees it differently.
我不认为要去提出它是华人世界唯一一个能够举办六四的地方，我认为那个不重要。我认为重要是台湾作为世界人民的一部分，而且台湾对世界的标榜是台湾是追求自由民主价值的，我们又是世界第一线面对中国威胁的，台湾更应该纪念六四，用纪念六四让世界人不要忘记中国政府的恶行。
This year, an art exhibition on the site highlights human rights issues in China, and films screened outdoors also focus on the changing face of Hong Kong. For many here, like exiled Hong Kong artist Casey Wong, the day has become about more than just remembering the Tiananmen crackdown.
With the fall of Hong Kong, Tiananmen Vigil will no longer be possible. So for me to be able to publicly participate in the vigil, as well as connected with the brothers and sisters of resistance, such as the Tibetan people, the Xinjiang people, and the Taiwan people. So this solidarity connects us because we have similar enemy.
With candles in hand and a minute's silence observed, Taipei's Pillar of Shame went up with the help of Hong Kongers who are trying to start a new life here. The replica is less than half the size of the original, but its message is just as powerful. Taiwan has not forgotten what happened in Beijing 33 years ago, and will defend the freedoms here that are slowly being lost in Hong Kong. Ryan Hill-Kilpatrick for TaiwanPlus.
South Korea and the United States have fired 8 ballistic missiles in a joint exercise off the eastern coast of South Korea. The launches follow reports that North Korea test-fired 8 missiles from different locations on Sunday. According to Yonhap news agency based in Seoul, South Korea's launch was intended to show that the country can carry out accurate strikes against the North. South Korea had just wrapped up joint exercises with the US. Pyongyang has carried out 18 rounds of missile tests this year, more than in the past 2 years combined. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned of attacks against new targets in Ukraine if the United States supplies Kyiv with long-range missiles. Russia launched its first airstrike on the Ukrainian capital in more than a month on Sunday, claiming it destroyed tanks supplied by European countries. Ukraine says the missiles hit a site with no military equipment. In recent weeks, fighting has been concentrated in the Donbass region of eastern Ukraine. That's after Ukrainian forces pushed back Russia's initial assault on Kyiv early in the invasion. Coming up, serving up gold medals. Taiwan's athletes shine at the Italian International Badminton Tournament. Details after the break.
The reason I do the teaching to high school students, I think our high school textbook of social sciences is poorly written. My feeling is when I read those texts, I don't want to be a social scientist anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So my joke was that those textbooks were written by Fei Die.
I see.
Taiwan's diplomat may be the most frustrating job in the world. They give us pressure, never allowed us to use Taiwan in any place, in our business cards, in our letterhead, anything.
I'm Cyrus. See you on TaiwanPlus.
I'm Audrey Tong. See you on TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus. For more great news from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Okay, there's a couple here. There's one here. You see, 2, 3. 到目前的为止，大概6次而已啊，真的不多。赚不到钱了，要钱也不够啊。来了，你看，又来了。
I'm going to prepare them in a more European way. I'm going to smoke these eels. The best part, put it in your mouth.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. Tennis player Rafael Nadal has won his 14th French Open title. He beat Casper Ruud in straight sets on Sunday. Nadal's victory came 2 days after his 36th birthday, making him the oldest winner in the history of the clay court tournament. Dubbed the King of Clay, Nadal now holds a record 22 men's singles Grand Slam titles. And Team Taiwan has claimed its first ever gold medals at the Italian International 2022 Badminton tournament. The national squad won the crown in both the women's singles and doubles events in Milan on Sunday. It also took home a silver in men's doubles and a bronze in men's singles. Taiwan's representative to Italy was there to cheer on the team, and he brought traditional Dragon Boat Festival treats for the players. The team is heading to Denmark for their next tournament. How does an ancient goddess stay relevant in modern-day Taiwan? At a time when people struggle to keep up with the latest tech trends, the sea goddess Mazu is more popular than ever, thanks to some modern-day solutions. Maggie May has the story.
Hundreds of thousands of people have come out to see her, many struggling to get as close as they can. She's not a pop singer or a movie star. No, this is Mazu, the goddess of the sea, and this pilgrimage is in honor of her birthday. It's hard to imagine that just a few decades ago, this centuries-old tradition, the Dajia Mazu pilgrimage, was in danger of dying out.
大家看到说这个都是老一辈子，那可能这样不行。那我们要让这个世代的传承。那我们当时我们就想说，我们也要让年轻人来参与。
Organizers began making some changes. In 1993, Zhenlan Temple began allowing live broadcasts of the annual pilgrimage. More recently, entire businesses have sprung up around the festival, selling a wide range of Mazu-related products along the route. Today, the pilgrimage is a major contributor to the economy of central Taiwan.
每年可以说很多的这些厂商，他们这些年轻人说真的很有创意啊，我们也很喜欢有更多的年轻人能跟大甲妈来结合，来买到在少年人有一个机会，这个是我们大甲妈的宗旨。 能栽培一些年轻人的创意。
All this has helped transform the Dajia Mazu pilgrimage from a quaint rural festival into an event that can sometimes see millions of participants. The difficult trek leads pilgrims to many temples in honor of Mazu, starting in Taichung City's Dajia district and heading south to Xingang Township in Jiayin County. That's a round trip of about 340 kilometers. But the COVID-19 pandemic has been challenging for the pilgrims. This year saw only 600,000 attendees. That's far less than in previous years when as many as 5 million walked the route. Organizers have had to get creative to find ways to keep people coming back despite the obstacles presented by the pandemic. One innovation is a GPS device and cameras installed on the top of Mazu's palanquin. They are connected to an app that allows you to track the goddess's location in real time.
随时就知道说妈祖行到哪里，他就可以知道来接马子，就不要浪费那么多的时间。
Zhenlan Temple has also launched a website that devotees around the world can use to pray online.
因为每年早期呢还没有这个疫情嘛，海内外差不多都有将近4、5千人都会回来参加大甲妈的这个绕境，大家已经3年没回来参加了，他们都好像说很失望所以说都会在要求我们能在网络还有线上的这一种点上光明灯还是什么。 来跟我们大甲妈祈求一个平安。
time and again, the organizers of Dajia Mazu pilgrimage have found a creative way to adapt to new problems. And that's helping keep the goddess of the sea an important part of life in Taiwan. James Rayner, Kama Xu, James Trader, and Maggie May for TaiwanPlus.
Intricate wood carvings are a common sight in Taiwanese temples, but the industry was hit hard after a law was imposed restricting free access to fallen trees. Now, few artisans remain. We take you to a young master in Sanxia, New Taipei, who is trying to revive this special art.
我叫黄希成，今年29岁，然后从事凿画工作已经大概10年左右。 凿花就是我们以前传统庙宇里面一种雕刻的技术，然后我们以前台语叫做 Yin Khvat， 它这种凿花的技巧就是比较半浮雕的一种雕刻状态，它可能不像我们立体的那种360度的，它在雕刻上面只刻了3/4，然后其他部分是因为因应一些装饰技巧，凿花的技巧跟我们现在西洋的一些立体的雕塑有点不太一样。 它很多技巧上是会运用视觉上消失点的关系，它可能隐藏到我们物件的后面，但是它其实可以省略很多一些技巧。凿花的步骤的话，通常我们在前提上一定会去做稿，然后因为我们是从平面转成半浮雕立体的状态，所以一定会有一些打稿的样板在。然后这个东西就是可以运用在各个大小构件，或是说家具啊，或者说因的不同的东西去设计。 所以其实它有一点就是要照着一些我们比较图面的设计完之后，再去把它做成立体的转换。打板完之后，就是把它贴在我们要的构件上，好，然后再去做。 所谓的就是镂空的部分，先用机器的部分先把它镂掉，然后再来针对雕刻的部分，不论是花鸟或是人物，来做一个半立体、半浮雕的一种雕刻技术。在层次上，它会比较多层，层次上的分明会很明显，对，跟我们立体的层面上截然不同。 刚接触的时候，最大的困难有2点。第一个就是工具上的磨制，因为玉线上其实毕竟玉器器，所以你在雕刻上其实会有很大的帮助。然后第二点就是我们怎么去理解图的层面，因为图的层面代表你要如何去转换成立体的部分。有时候就是要看着图，可能思考了1-2天，去思考说你要怎么去对于这个凿花的雕刻去做布局，还有层次上的分明。这是在初期的时候学的。 比较困难的地方，这些凿画的技术环绕在于庙宇的雕刻。那这种庙宇雕刻，不管是比较算是民间一种工艺的，所以它很接近于平民大众。所以我们其实，在雕刻前提下，一定会去先念一些比较文学的东西，小说，或者说《三国演义》《封神演义》，然后帮助我们在雕刻的时候会去构图，或者说会去比较了解这个人的长相。 好，然后形象上会有很大的帮助。凿画的技术在以前的话，其实是一个还蛮可以养家活口的一个技术。但是因为台湾的木头，民国80年之后开始禁采，台湾雕刻业开始走下坡。那走下坡的情况下，会导致这些雕刻师傅没有人工作，或者说他们工资太高，会影响到产业上可能没办法那么高价了，那可能会移到大陆去。 导致很多台湾的雕刻师傅就会转图，或者说做其他的了，没有再做雕刻了。台湾的雕刻师傅有断层了，我上一辈的这雕刻师傅都已经大概就60-70岁都有了，中间会有产生断层。那我们在接触的时候，可能就是在现有的老师傅的情况下，还有就是可能以前遗留下来的建筑，或者说他雕刻的东西去做再学习，所以会比较困难了一点。 就是我学艺的老师，就是赤城祖师庙以前雕刻师傅洪耀辉老师，他的雕刻当中，其实跟以往真的很传统的凿花的师傅来说，他能更表现得更立体，把层次上可以变得更明显。然后这种东西当中是让我学习到，就是其实在凿花技术上有很多不一样的层面。去观看老建物、老旧物的时候，跟师傅他们在刻的时候，这个落差上。 还有就是图稿在绘制上其实有点落差，但是都是值得学习的地方。那现在我有这样的技术，然后希望把它透过这边带一些这边比较中辍的小朋友，其实他们长期生活在三峡，对于雕刻，对于祖师庙来说是他们常去的地方。那他们看了这些雕刻，但是不知道它怎么来的。那其实接触之后，带着他们去做这种雕刻，知道哦，这种产业虽然没落，但是其实它有它的专业性，还有它的独特性。
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Finally today, we leave you with images of an Italian regatta in Venice. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app. Stay safe and see you next time.